It's funny, like there's all this hype around AI. I work in the field every day. Even I sometimes feel almost like I'm hyped out. I'm like a little tired of it. But that said, I honestly think most people are sleeping on just how much is changing and how quickly it's changing. I think we're just a handful of years away from AGI, and that is going to alter the entire business economic landscape in ways that most people aren't even really beginning to think about.
Hi there. You are listening to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. My guests and myself share our entrepreneurial journey and our methods for a balanced life. And I'm joined here today by Ron Green. Ron, thank you for joining us today. Would you
Thank
like
you
to
for having me.
introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me, Leo. I'm Ron Green. I'm one of the co-founders and the chief technology officer of Kung Fu AI, an Austin-based company that helps our clients with AI strategy and custom model engineering.
I'm looking forward to going into that in more detail. So talk to me about family. What does family mean to you? I think you've got 3 kids.
Yeah, I've got 3 boys. They're all in their 20s now. Family is a huge part of our lives. It is, it's foundational for me. I mean, I don't know if there's anything more important than family, beyond, even my children, my brothers, my sister, my parents, my in-laws. It's one of the most important things to me, period.
Lovely. And have the kids stayed locally, or have they headed off across the US?
Let's see. I've got one, a couple in Colorado now, and then one in Austin, Texas. So spread out a little bit. I expect one of them to probably stay in Colorado the rest of his life. He's up high in the mountains with his wife, and they could not be more happy there.
So I think I read something the other day that talked about the US is one of the most portable countries in the world, meaning people do move. So if you think about most countries, either people don't move or they move once. Like someone might move to, say, London, but they're probably not going to then leave London, or maybe they'll leave somewhere locally, like in the greater London area. But the US, people move all around the country, whether it be for love, for work. It's pretty
I've heard that. I've
easy.
heard that as well. And I've also noticed it seems like things have changed with a college bit. I noticed that my kids' generation, there's much more of a mixing at the college level. Meaning, when I went to school, everybody seemed to be from a 200-mile radius, and they have friends that they go to college with that are from the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, the South, all over the place. And so I think they build these connections in school that makes them feel like they can move around the country, and almost anywhere they go, they would be able to stay with a friend and get to know the city. And then you couple that with the explosion in remote work because of the pandemic. I would imagine if America has already been fairly, sort of travel focused, that will only increase.
Yeah, I remember meeting someone back in 2021, so sort of into the pandemic, and he'd moved from, I think it was Colorado, to Hawaii. And he said that, and this was someone who was his senior role, I think COO or something like that in a business. And he said, if I'm going to work remotely, I might as well work where I enjoy being.
Yes.
And he said, yes, I start at, I can't remember what time, but call it 4 a.m. in the morning so that he's there early. But he said, I'm fine with that because by lunchtime I'm done. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, hit the golf course every afternoon.
Yeah.
So I think there is a quality of life. And it's funny, I think, our generation think that sort of millennials and Gen Z, the general opinion is they're lazy. And I mean, that is the general, I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying that's the general opinion. Our parents' generation probably think we were lazy. But the thing I find interesting is the next generation, especially Gen Z, have decided that there should be a quality of life. It's just not about working every hour.
Right.
Gone are the days where, you got to be the first in the office and the last to leave. You've got to put in 60, 80-hour weeks. No.
Yeah.
I think Gen Z, actually, I think they have it right, by the way. saying, well,
I
no,
think that,
I'm happy to work hard, but no, I actually want to have my evenings. I want to have my
yeah,
weekends, and no, I don't want to work every hour.
yeah. Yeah, I look back. I wish I could. If I could send back a message to time to the younger me. There's a couple of things I would communicate, and one would be, um, you are getting diminishing returns when you're going on hour like 10, 11, and 12 of work. I used to think sleep was a mental thing. It's willpower. And I look back now and I go like, and I know I wasted so much time on trying to solve problems when I was stuck because my mind was just in a loop. And what I needed to do was stop working, call it a day, or at minimum take a break and come back to it. And I now can remember, like in hindsight, there were so many times I was stuck on a problem, some coding software thing, and I might work for 4 hours and I would feel the whole time I'm an inch away from solving this. And then finally, when I decided to call it a day and jump in the car and leave the office, I wouldn't be a mile from the office. And then I would instantly know what was wrong. And I wasn't even thinking about the problem. It was, I just had to free my brain up from that loop it was in, that where I was just exploring dead ends. And so I'm a real big believer now that you have to have work-life balance, and there's only so many hours you can do top, like A plus level work consecutively. And I think those two things go together.
Very true. I also think you need time off. I think
Yes,
America has a weird relationship with holidays.
it does.
It's like, oh, I get 10 days off a year, but I shouldn't actually take them. The badge of honor is if I didn't take two
I
days
know.
off.
I
And
know.
you get, there are, I don't know, let's call it another 10 public holidays, of which a lot of businesses don't actually close on those public holidays. So it's sort of like a badge of honor to be working every day. And, Europe, the legal minimum is 20 days plus probably another 15 days of public holidays, and businesses are closed for public holidays.
Yes.
And to be honest, most people are on more than 20 days. So in Europe, they probably end up taking, let's call it 40 days off between public holidays and vacation.
Yeah.
And if you look at the stats, they're no less productive than America.
Well, it goes back to the point we were just talking about, which is, you can have the illusion of productivity, right? Just because you're working hard doesn't mean you're making a lot of progress. And, at Kung Fu AI, my company, we literally have unlimited PTO. You can take as much time off as you want or as you need. And every year, you know, we look back and we have to encourage people, please take some time off. We've got all these hardworking high achievers, and invariably they're not even taking what I think is an appropriate amount of time off to take care of yourself and get perspective. I always find, like, if I take 3 days off, that's barely enough time to get your head unplugged, right? You spend the first day worrying about work, and the second day kind of half worrying about work. And then the third day, maybe you're unplugged and it's time to go back. You really need more of an extended break, in my opinion, if you're going to recharge your batteries.
So that's a good question, which is, can you unplug? Are you good at saying, okay, I'm turning off, I'm done, I'm doing something completely different, I'm not going to think about work?
I think so. I've done, as a serial entrepreneur, it's basically like a roller coaster ride. It is just absolutely, um, sometimes feast or famine. And I think you have to be able to, um, just put in a hard day and then finish it, put everything aside, relax, recharge, even over the weekends. So, what I mean? I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably guilty of working 6 days a week on average, but if I'm not working, I'm not working. I'm unplugged and I'm relaxed, and I don't feel. I saw this interview the other day with Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of NVIDIA, and he said, I have great work-life balance. I work 7 days a week. I work from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. He said, if I go to a movie, I don't even remember it because I'm thinking about work and I'm thinking about getting back to work. And he loves it. And so that's not what I want to do. I think that would probably burn most people out. But the point I'm making is, I think everybody has to find their balance. And some people want to grind it out, and that's where they find fulfillment. Um, and I think for the vast majority, a bit of balance is really what you need more than anything else. Moderation.
And how does balance look for you?
Great question. Balance for me is being able to spend time with family. It really comes back to that. Spending time with my wife, every day, spending time with the kids as much as we can, now with them, in school or living abroad, spending time with, you know, my extended family. Um, that for me is the biggest thing. And then, you've got your friend circles. And what's really nice about that is you can get together and talk about anything but work. And to me, that goes a long way that goes a really long way to getting you in a different mind space because, I work in artificial intelligence. So, I mean, it's hard to imagine the field could possibly be moving any faster than it is. So I'll wake up on a Sunday and I'll just read technical white papers over coffee for 4 hours, but I kind of have to do that to stay up to date. I enjoy it and I love it. I consider my responsibilities as a CTO to be deeply aware of anything that's happening in our space. But for me, that's not a sacrifice. It's a little bit of my Sunday, and I spend the rest of the time with my wife and family.
And it's your passion.
That's right.
So, how does health look for you? Whether that be physical health, mental health, nutrition, what does health look like?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Again, I used to really have this warped perspective about sleep that it was mostly mental and that, if you had strong willpower, you could get by on 5 hours, 6 hours. It was really just all in your head. And I used to, even going back to high school, I used to sleep so sadly little in the grand scheme of things. Now I don't think this is I don't think this is uh, you know, going to be revolutionary or anything like that. I think it's just common sense now is that you need good sleep. You need to exercise, ideally every day. You need to eat healthy. And then I'm a big fan of moderation, and I like the recursive moderation, meaning have moderation in everything, including moderation. Like every now and then blow it out, go have fun. You don't always want to be towing the line. So I think that those four things are the number one those four elements are the number top tier priority things that I focus on to make sure that I'm in a healthy physical and mental state.
And what do you like to do for your daily exercise you were talking about?
I used to think that, as you got older, you needed less sort of strength focus, but there's all these, medical studies coming out recently that are pointing to strength routines being really important for long-term health, which almost feels counterintuitive to me. So I always try to do a combination of some type of aerobic, whether it's even as simple as just walking might get your heart up if you're doing hills. I'm here in Austin. There are a lot of hills, so you can just walk those, and you're in great shape. And that coupled with sort of core and functional strength are the main ways I do sort of check the box on the exercise.
You're definitely right. A lot of studies saying that as you get older, weightlifting becomes
Yeah,
more important. It's interesting how these things change. And a
it
lot of
is. It really
studies
is.
talking about, well, they've already been there a long time, saying how sleep is needed to recover. I mean, and I've noticed it. I mean, I wear an aura, but I can see if I'm going for a run and I've had a good night's sleep, my performance is fundamentally different than if I haven't had a good night's sleep.
Yes, I just bought my wife an Aura like a month ago. She loves it, and I was at a dinner meeting last night. I think half of the dozen people there were wearing an Aura ring as well.
Yeah, they've done a good job of taking a lot of the market.
They have.
Um,
It's a good product too. So
yeah, they're definitely getting some competitors now, but it is a good product. And so we skirted around it, but talk a little more about work, both your work journey as a serial entrepreneur, so your journey that has taken you to where you are now, and then talk to us a little bit more about Kung Fu AI.
yeah, I'd be delighted to. So my background is in computer science, and then I did a master's in artificial intelligence. Actually, back in the '90s, back before AI was cool, and so I lucked out. I was working at one of my second job out of college. I got a job at early stage biotech startup, and we were in Toronto, Canada, and we were building high speed DNA sequencing hardware and software. And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, great people having a ball. It opened my eyes that, you can really kind of do anything in life. You don't, these weren't people that had experience building these systems. They were all incredibly, smart, hard driven people, but it was mind blowing to me that you could just decide you were going to go build a product in some space that you didn't have previous experience in. And it was touch and go. This is my first startup. I think I was employee number 5 or 6 or something like that. And we missed payroll one time and, look really dire. And then you look up a few years later and we found market traction. We went public. We got acquired by Bayer, and I was hooked from that point. I was like, all right, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I really want to be in sort of the startup entrepreneurial game. And since then, I've done 9 startups, most of those in the product space, almost every one of them in a different vertical. So I've worked in healthcare, security, telecommunications, biotech, et cetera. And I just consider myself to be really lucky because with the sort of a computer science background, software background, you can go work in almost any field. Yeah, you'll have a little bit of a learning curve with the domain knowledge, but typically 6 months to a year, and then you are fully up to speed and functional there. And then you couple that with the fact that I've been working in artificial intelligence now well over 2 decades. And for the vast majority of it, it was a case of us sort of over promising and under delivering. And that really started to change about 10 years ago. So Kung Fu AI, which we're going on our 8th year now, I just couldn't be more happy. We help our clients build custom AI solutions. That can mean really, really advanced state-of-the-art custom AI models. And it's a whole other end of the spectrum. We'll help them with strategy. If you don't know how to get started, you don't know what the opportunities are, what's real, what should you build, what should you buy, all that type of stuff. And the pace of AI, like I mentioned earlier, is moving at just this incredibly high frenetic pace. And so every week, I feel like there are new advancements and new things being developed that literally move the needle and change what we can bring to market, change what our clients can do, new things that they could use to automate or streamline, or introduce entirely new capabilities that would have been, almost like science fiction 10 years ago.
That'll grow with like a snowball. It's definitely going to be growing at some pretty rapid rates, and I think it'll be interesting to see where the evolution goes.
I agree.
But
I think
the
sky's the limit. I think you're right. It's funny, like there's all this hype around AI. I work in the field every day. Even I sometimes feel almost like I'm hyped out. I'm like a little tired of it. But that said, I honestly think most people are sleeping on just how much is changing and how quickly it's changing. I think we're just a handful of years away from AGI, and that is going to alter the entire, business economic landscape in ways that most people aren't even really beginning to think about.
and to be honest, I'm excited for that.
I am too. I'm deeply excited about it. I mean, I get the worry. I get the worry about jobs and disruption. I get the worry about alignment, super alignment of these very sophisticated advanced models. It's a challenging open question, but I truly would not be working in this field if I wasn't, significantly more optimistic about our ability to move into a world where, in the next 25 years, we're going to have artificial general intelligence, meaning we're going to have these systems that are going to be capable of performing pretty much any human level reasoning task at a human or superhuman ability. And you couple that with all the advancements going on within battery tech and robotics, certainly within the next 20 years, we're going to look back and just marvel that so much of our lives that were dictated by, struggling and friction and uh, all the elements that make life difficult and have made life difficult for millennia are just kind of slowly fading away. And I think we're going to see just unbelievable scientific advancements. Um, we've done some work in the medical imaging space. In fact, we've got a model that's about to get FDA approval. It is going to be a game changer for breast cancer. So I think the quality of life, the level of abundance, the amount of physical backbreaking labor that people will have to perform, all of that is going to change enormously in our lifetime.
Exciting.
I agree. I totally agree. I can't think of anything that would be more exciting, honestly.
I'm interested. So, where are your team based? Are you obviously fully remote? Are they in the US? You got people around the world? And how
We're
many people you
all
got in the team?
Yeah, so we're just under 50 people. We're all US based. We do some work for the US government. And so because of that, we have to make sure everybody's US citizens, everybody's US based. So everybody's within the continental 48 states, but we have folks all over every time zone. We were pretty much concentrated here in Austin for a long time, but then when the pandemic happened and we closed the office, we took advantage if we couldn't be together, which really bums me out. We could at least take advantage of the ability to go higher and not be limited geographically by talent. So we have folks in uh, half the states.
Makes sense. And what do you? So, what do you like to do for fun?
Great question. A big reader. I read a ton. I love to play the piano. So I spend probably several hours every weekend doing that, and it's just a great. I think it's a sort of a combo, great way to unwind and relax, and also engage a different sort of creative element of my brain that I don't really get to necessarily uh, work with as much at work when I'm more on the technical end of the spectrum.
Okay. And what has been a pivotal moment in your life? So that can be personal, business, but what has really been that sort of pivotal moment for you?
Mm, that's interesting. I think I've had in many ways, sort of countless pivotal moments where you bump into somebody or you have a conversation or somebody mentions something that really changes and alters the trajectory of your career. Probably the most important thing that's happened in the last decade is me meeting one of my co-founders, Stephen Strauss, our CEO. He and I were both looking at doing an AI based startup. We didn't know each other, even though we ran in very sort of similar circles professionally. This is back in early 2018, and we knew we wanted to do something in AI. He wanted to do something on the services front. I really was a product person. I had no services experience at all at that point. And he made a really compelling argument that things were things were moving too fast in AI for a product play, and that we could go raise capital, go build a product within could be 18 months, could be 24 months. Some new technical advancement could come out and literally wipe away all that work and just decimate any value that we had created. And I thought that was a pretty compelling argument. And in hindsight, he was totally right. I joke with him all the time. I'm like, man, Steven, it pains me to tell you this, but you were right. That was a good call. I do think things are changing. I do think moving towards a product mentality is a wise idea now. Things are firming up from a capabilities perspective in AI and settling down. But at that time, I think it would have been crazy to do product play. In fact, the landscape's littered with companies that tried to do AI product plays over the last 8 years, and it was a bad move.
I think you were definitely right. I mean, both in when you were launching the business and now I've got a couple of interesting AI. We do quite a lot in AI, and I've got a couple of interesting products I'd like to do. One in particular. Problem is, it's funny time. I've got too many other,
Right.
got too many businesses that are keeping me busy. But I've
Exactly.
got one idea. I'd love to either do myself or at least have someone else do it because I'd use it. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's a separate
Somebody go build it,
conversation.
or you'll have to do it yourself.
Yeah, definitely a separate conversation there. And what's one piece of advice you could give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
Mm. Um, I always tell people if you're thinking about, building a company, if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, to understand it is way harder than it looks. It is like 100 times more stressful than you think. And I try to tell them, like, just imagine, you start this new company. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows the name of your company. Nobody cares. And just trying to get attention out there is really difficult. Ignoring all the challenges around technical execution and product market fit and all that sort of stuff. And it can be really, really lonely. And you've got to, kind of always keep a stiff upper lip and act like everything is going great. Yeah, we're raising money and we're getting traction and it is an absolute grind, and most startups fail. And so I tell them, unless like you literally, if this is just something that you cannot live without, don't do it, because it is just so much more difficult than people anticipate. But if you feel you need to do this, if this is something you really think you're up for, I can't imagine going a different route. I mean, on a personal basis, I look back in hindsight and I'm like, I think part of the reason I'm an entrepreneur is I really hate to be told what to do. I mean, it's a personal flaw probably, but I don't mind working hard, especially when I'm working for myself, right? And I control my time and I decide what my priorities are. And so I really wouldn't have it any other way, but people need to be, under no illusion of just how difficult it is.
There's nothing quite like being an entrepreneur, but it's definitely not an easy path. When I talk to, there's a charity that I'm very involved in where we teach entrepreneurship to underserved communities. I often say to the kids, if you're looking for the easy path, if you're looking to make money, go get a job. There's nothing more satisfying than being an entrepreneur, but you're pretty sure you'll make a lot less money, certainly in the short term, maybe
That's
even the
right.
medium term. Long
That's
term,
right.
hopefully you'll make more.
Right. That's right. That's right. And you remind me, another thing I always tell people too is, if you're going to do it and you're really committed to it, it's okay if you fail. Most entrepreneurs have a string of failures in their past, right? But those failures, which really weird. I love this. I don't know if this is unique to America or not, but it's certainly true within the entrepreneurial space here that if you have founded a company or two or three and they were all unsuccessful or moderately, you know, successful, people don't really care either way. They really genuinely care that you got back up on the horse and tried again. And I think the idea that you would have that resiliency and that drive and that determination is what people really care about. I've done 9 startups. Not all of them have been successful. Nobody ever asked me about that. Nobody ever says, "Oh, well, tell me about the one that failed," or the ones that were moderate successes. People always just are blown away that I've done 9, and they assume they were all successful. And if they weren't, that I must have learned a lot and was worth it. And um, I think that's one of the cool things about entrepreneurship in America is that you really do get credit for trying. Everything doesn't have to be a success. You really will get credit for trying.
It is a pretty uniquely American thing that it's okay to fail. It's okay to go bankrupt. It's actually not a stain. Whereas in a lot of countries, it's very negative. It's yeah, it's a pretty unique. I think I wrote a blog a few months ago talking about how you learn more from your failures than your successes.
I believe that true. I believe that so much because um, success can give you a false sense of security. A lot of times there's just luck and there's just happenstance. I've literally had um, I've literally had ventures that through no fault of our own and just market timing had less upside outcomes than we probably should have deserved. But I think it's probably offset by some where we had, luck on our side and we may have come out on top in a way that was not really correlated with as much as we deserved. And that's one of the reasons I, go back to it's at bats, it's attempts. The more at bats and attempts you have, even with the failures, you're just incrementally increasing the odds that you're going to figure it out. I saw the other day something like most successful startups are started by founders in their late 40s and early 50s. And I think, a large part of that is because it takes a long time to figure out how to do it correctly.
Love that. I haven't read that stat, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So how can people find you?
On email, Ron, RON at kungfu.ai. Shoot me a note. I'm on Twitter X, and we have a podcast called Hidden Layers where we do pretty deep dives on AI. I literally recorded a podcast yesterday with Dr. Carl Friston, the most cited living neuroscientist, and his ideas on the free energy principle and active inference around how our brains learn and adapt. And I would encourage people to go check that out. And shoot me a note if you have any questions.
I love that. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Leo. Appreciate it.
And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and leave a review. Thank you.